The shooting of President John F. Kennedy shocked the entire nation and left the world in disbelief. For his wife Jackie, the pain was not only public but deeply personal. In a single moment, her life was shattered in front of millions. November 22, 1963 changed everything she knew, everything she had built, and everything she believed her future would be. But what happened after the cameras stopped recording was even more devastating. Away from the crowds and flashing lights, Jackie finally collapsed. A Secret Service agent was there when she broke down in private. He later shared that she confessed something to him, something she never told the public. People believed she stayed in the blood-stained pink suit to show America the horror of what had been done. That was partly true, but there was another reason, a deeply emotional one that she kept hidden. For 60 years, her bodyguard carried that secret. When it finally came out, it revealed why Jackie never truly recovered from that day and why her final years were filled with quiet sorrow. The truth changes how we see her strength, her silence, and her pain. Jackie Kennedy was born on July 28, 1929, in a place that was not originally planned. Her parents expected her to be born in a Manhattan hospital, but during a summer stay in the Hamptons, plans suddenly changed. She was born at Southampton Hospital instead. Her father, John Blackjack Bouvier III, was an ambitious and charming man who worked on Wall Street and loved attention. Her mother, Janet Norton Lee, came from a powerful and wealthy banking family. That summer, the Bouviers had just bought a new home in Southampton, and Jackie's birth became a small social event. Newspapers took notice. At the hospital, she was simply listed as baby girl Bouvier, and the family stayed there for 2 weeks. From the very beginning, Jackie's life was surrounded by comfort, status, and privilege. But even then, problems were already growing beneath the surface. Her parents' marriage was far from happy, and the tension was real. Her baptism took place at St. Ignatius Loyola Church in Manhattan, a grand church known for its wealthy and influential members. It was more than a religious ceremony. It was a social statement. That was where she officially received the name Jacqueline, chosen to honor her father. This church would later become one of the few steady places in her life. It hosted her confirmation years later and, eventually, her funeral. As her life moved through fame, heartbreak, and loss, that church remained a constant presence. Jackie began riding horses at the age of 3. Her mother strongly believed that horseback riding taught discipline, elegance, and strength. Janet herself was an accomplished rider and pushed Jackie to follow the same path. By the age of 5, Jackie was already winning awards. She earned a blue ribbon at the Devon Horse Show, competing in the under-9 category. Society pages wrote about her, and her mother proudly shared the attention. But for Jackie, horses were not about trophies or praise. They became a safe place. At home, her parents argued often. Her father drank heavily and gambled, and the atmosphere was tense and unpredictable. Jackie found peace with her pony, Buddy. Riding gave her a sense of control when everything else felt unstable. Horses stayed important to her throughout her life, not as symbols of wealth, but as comfort and escape. In 1936, the family moved from the Hamptons to a large apartment on Park Avenue that covered 2 entire floors. It was developed by Jackie's grandfather and looked impressive from the outside. Inside, however, it was unfinished and oddly empty. Despite his public image as a successful Wall Street man, Jackie's father was already struggling financially. There were rooms without furniture, and Jackie and her sister Lee rollerskated through the open spaces. Jackie showed her clever and curious nature early on. She would distract their nanny by offering her sister small treats so she could sneak into neighbors' apartments to play with their toys. This independence and quiet boldness stayed with her as she grew older. Behind the elegant address and polished image, the family was falling apart. Her father's gambling debts and affairs became public knowledge. Newspapers reported on his behavior, his relationships with chorus girls, and his financial problems. He faced bankruptcy. Jackie heard the arguments behind closed doors and felt the tension even when no one spoke. In 1940, when Jackie was just 11 years old, her parents officially divorced. The separation had begun years earlier, but the final break changed her forever. She turned inward and leaned even more on horseback riding. Her relationship with her mother grew distant. She never stopped loving her father, but the sense of betrayal stayed with her. It shaped how she viewed love, trust, and men for the rest of her life. The years following the divorce were confusing and painful. Jackie and her sister lived between two very different worlds, moving back and forth between the luxury of Manhattan and the quiet isolation of Long Island. She felt pulled in opposite directions. She admired her father's charm and warmth but felt embarrassed by his behavior and public scandals. That emotional conflict made her guarded and observant. She learned to watch people closely and to protect her feelings. As Jackie grew older, she discovered a strong love for writing and storytelling. She began working as a photographer and writer, and her talent quickly became clear. When she wrote about fashion and society, her words felt alive. She described colors, textures, and emotions in a way that made readers feel present. At a time when most women in newsrooms were limited to writing about parties and weddings, Jackie brought intelligence and originality to her work. She was no longer just a pretty woman with a camera. She was a thoughtful writer with a sharp perspective. In 1953, she covered the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Her writing made readers feel as if they were standing inside Buckingham Palace, watching the crowns and ceremonies unfold. Editors noticed her talent and continued giving her important assignments. That same year, she traveled to Korea, where she crouched in foxholes wearing a helmet and carrying her camera. She took powerful photographs of soldiers and everyday people affected by war. Her newspaper did not publish many of them because of its conservative views, but Jackie kept the images. She also photographed moments from the civil rights movement, capturing the faces of black men and women demanding equality. Many of these photos were never shown publicly, but they revealed her awareness and quiet support. She understood injustice and knew where she stood, even if she could not say it openly at the time. Alongside her professional work, Jackie also helped her mother by ghostwriting charity columns. She moved easily between formal embassy dinners and late-night writing sessions. She worked hard, met deadlines, and managed social expectations without losing her sense of self. She turned down marriage proposals from men who saw her only as decoration. She wanted respect. She wanted to be known for her mind and her work, not just her appearance. When she met a young senator named John F. Kennedy, something felt different. He asked thoughtful questions, including what gave her hope. Their conversations deepened over time. In May 1951, they had their first meaningful discussion at a dinner party in Georgetown. Jackie continued writing even after they married in 1953. During her honeymoon, she submitted articles. She covered political events and kept balancing her personal and professional lives. She helped write JFK's letters and speeches, contributed fashion pieces to magazines like Vogue, and continued shaping public ideas through words. In 1957, she wrote about the pillbox hat, and the article influenced fashion trends across the country. By the time JFK ran for president, Jackie was not just his wife. She was his partner in image, messaging, and presentation. When their children were born, the world watched closely. Yet Jackie fiercely protected their privacy, understanding the cost of fame. When she became First Lady in 1961, she brought her journalist instincts with her. She carefully controlled how the White House was presented to the public. She hired a female press secretary, which was groundbreaking at the time. She understood the power of images and stories. Her Life magazine cover became the best-selling issue of the year. Her fashion choices were criticized for their cost, but most of her wardrobe was American-made and helped boost the U.S. fashion industry. She spoke fluent French and impressed world leaders, including Charles de Gaulle, who called her one of the most intelligent Americans he had met. Despite the glamour, Jackie never saw her role as fantasy. It was work. She continued researching, writing, and shaping history quietly. Even the books she never published showed her deep curiosity and discipline. When she walked into the White House for the first time, she did not see a proud symbol of American history. She saw neglect. Determined to restore its meaning, she worked tirelessly to bring history, beauty, and dignity back into the building. That determination reflected who she truly was. After JFK's assassination, the strength she showed to the world hid deep wounds. The blood-stained suit was not only a statement for America. It was part of her grief, her shock, and her inability to accept what had happened. The secret she shared in private explained why she never fully healed. She lived on, raised her children, and protected her privacy, but the loss stayed with her until the end. Jackie Kennedy was more than an icon. She was a complex, intelligent, and deeply feeling woman whose pain was as real as her grace. They began searching everywhere for historic pieces that could bring the White House back to life. They looked through private collections, historical societies, old family estates, and even international auction houses. Jackie did not simply give orders from behind the scenes. In 1962, she personally stepped into the spotlight and attended an auction at Sotheby's. There, she placed a bid on a desk that once belonged to Thomas Jefferson. The final price was $25,000, an amount that shocked many people at the time. To Jackie, however, it was not expensive at all. She believed it was priceless because it carried history, memory, and meaning. That desk represented the foundation of the nation, and she felt it belonged in the White House where it could inspire future generations. Jackie did not stop with one purchase. She personally reached out to wealthy families and influential donors, asking them to donate antiques, artwork, and furniture that had historical importance. She explained that these items were not for her or for decoration, but for the country itself. Slowly, room by room, the White House transformed. It was no longer just a place where presidents lived and worked. It became a living museum that told the story of America, its leaders, and its past. Every chair, painting, and table had a purpose and a story. Once the restoration was complete, Jackie made a bold decision. She decided to invite the entire nation inside. On Valentine's Day in 1962, she appeared on a televised tour of the newly restored White House. There were no commercials and no interruptions. For over an hour, Americans watched as Jackie calmly and gracefully guided them through the building. She spoke softly and clearly, pointing out important details like the Lincoln bed, the Madison china, and the Jefferson desk she had worked so hard to acquire. Her tone was respectful and educational, not political. An estimated 56 million people watched the broadcast, nearly 1 out of every 3 Americans. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from across the country, totaling around $1 million. The world took notice of what she had accomplished. That same year, Jackie received a Special Trustees Award from the Emmy Awards. No First Lady before or after her had ever received such an honor. Lady Bird Johnson accepted the award on her behalf. Jackie had achieved something remarkable. She turned a government building into a shared cultural treasure and used television not to promote herself or politics, but to preserve memory and history. Even before that famous broadcast, the atmosphere inside the White House had already begun to change. In November 1961, Jackie hosted a performance in the East Room that sent a powerful message. She invited Pablo Casals, a world-famous cellist who had not performed in the United States since the rise of Francisco Franco in Spain. Casals had been unofficially blacklisted because of his political beliefs. Jackie knew this and invited him anyway. That night, he played music by Mendelssohn, Schumann, and others for 200 guests in a room filled with political tension. Jackie believed that art should be free and not controlled by politics, even if her decision upset powerful people. The following year, she invited Leonard Bernstein to compose a mass for the National Cultural Center. Once again, she quietly shaped the nation's cultural legacy through music, courage, and conviction. She rarely spoke about these efforts publicly, but they mattered deeply to her. Behind the beauty and grace the public admired, however, something heartbreaking was unfolding. In August 1963, Jackie gave birth to a baby boy named Patrick Bouvier Kennedy. He was born early at just 34 weeks and weighed only 4 pounds and 10.5 ounces. He suffered from respiratory distress syndrome, a condition that doctors at the time could do very little to treat. Jackie and President Kennedy hoped and prayed, but after just 3 days, their son died. The public knew almost nothing about the tragedy. President Kennedy had the television removed from Jackie's hospital room so she would not see the news coverage or public reaction. While grieving the loss of her child, Jackie was also quietly dealing with Addison's disease, a rare illness that drained her energy and strength. Despite her pain and exhaustion, she continued to work. She focused on the White House restoration, guided the cultural center, and fulfilled her public role, all while carrying unimaginable grief. She mourned privately and rarely allowed the world to see her suffering. That same year, Jackie took on another responsibility that few people knew about. She personally edited the White House guidebook. She carefully reviewed and rewrote sections about historical artifacts, making sure every detail was accurate. She paid special attention to the section about Abraham Lincoln, ensuring it reflected his true legacy. The guidebook became a bestseller and raised additional money for preservation efforts. It also changed how the White House communicated with the public, setting a more thoughtful and educational tone. Years later, Jackie would use these same skills in her career as a book editor in New York. But it all began during those difficult years, as she quietly created something meant to last beyond her own pain. Then came the darkest day of her life, November 22, 1963. In Dallas, Jackie wore a pink Chanel-style suit with navy trim and gold buttons. Her matching hat completed the outfit. As the motorcade moved through the city, shots rang out. One bullet struck President Kennedy, shattering the back of his head. Blood sprayed across Jackie's clothes. In the chaos that followed, she refused to change. She boarded Air Force One still wearing the blood-stained suit. She stood beside Lyndon B. Johnson as he was sworn in as president, her clothes untouched. When someone asked why she would not change, she replied calmly, "I want them to see what they've done." That suit was later sealed away in an archive, locked until the year 2103. It remains one of the most haunting symbols in American history. At Parkland Hospital, Jackie never let go of her husband's hand. Even after doctors had done everything they could, she stayed close, whispering "I love you" again and again. Secret Service agents Clint Hill and Roy Kellerman remained by her side, shielding her from cameras, reporters, and even from the full weight of reality. She stayed with her husband long after he had passed. She could not speak. The only thing she asked for was her children. The trauma did not fade with time. Jackie later admitted that she could still hear the sound of the gunshot in her dreams. In private recordings, she said the shot echoed forever in her mind. Modern therapists say her symptoms matched severe post-traumatic stress. She suffered from sleeplessness, flashbacks, and emotional numbness. Her family tried to protect her, especially her mother, who kept her shielded from public pressure. But Jackie carried the pain with her for the rest of her life. It appeared in her letters, in her silence, and in the careful way she moved through the world. She became quieter, more watchful, and deeply wounded. Just 3 days after the assassination, Jackie arranged every detail of the funeral herself. She demanded a riderless horse to honor fallen military leaders. She insisted on an eternal flame that would never go out. On November 25, 1963, more than 1 million people lined the funeral route, while 3 million more watched on television. Jackie herself lit the eternal flame. The riderless horse named Blackjack followed the procession. A president had died, but a legend had been born, shaped in large part by Jackie's vision and strength. After leaving the White House, Jackie tried to build a new life. In 1964, she moved to New York City. She refused the widow's pension offered to her, saying she did not want charity. She wanted purpose. In 1975, she began working as a consulting editor at Viking Press. Over the next 19 years, she helped publish nearly 100 books, including memoirs, historical works, and art collections. She used her influence to help save Grand Central Station from demolition, protecting yet another piece of American history. Later, she joined Doubleday Publishing. One of her first major successes, there was a manuscript by Michael Jackson, which became a bestseller. Jackie became known as a thoughtful editor, a mentor to writers, and a guardian of important stories. Even so, her personal life remained complicated and often painful. In 1968, she married Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis on his private island. Photos from their wedding were published by Hustler magazine and spread around the world. Rumors claimed that Onassis himself leaked the images out of anger or control. Jackie was deeply hurt by the invasion of her privacy. Around the same time, it became known that she had previously been involved in a long, secret relationship with John Warnke, the architect who designed JFK's grave. Their affair lasted nearly 4 years and ended shortly before she married Onassis. In later years, Jackie admitted that she felt she had betrayed her late husband's memory, a feeling that haunted her. By the 1980s, her editing career reached its peak. At Doubleday, she worked on rare memoirs, historical collections, and important literary projects. In 1982, she secured a major deal with the Nabokov estate, bringing great prestige to the publishing house. Jackie balanced her demanding career with raising Caroline and John Jr., all while avoiding the spotlight as much as possible. Then, decades later, in 2023, a former Secret Service agent named Paul Landis spoke out again. He revealed the full truth about the bullet connected to the assassination. According to him, it was not just a fragment. It was a whole bullet, and he had moved it. His admission sent shockwaves through historians and conspiracy theorists alike. Once again, the events of November 22, 1963 resurfaced, reopening wounds and questions that had never fully healed. For Jackie Kennedy, that day never truly ended. It lived on in memory, silence, and the life she carried forward with quiet strength and lasting impact.